Hello and welcome to a Drum Corps Fan's Guide to the World, Episode 5. My name is David Vaughn, and I will be your host. A very pleasant good day to all of you, wherever you may be, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have two shows to cover, plus we're going to update our averages to just kind of let you know where everyone is. Before we get going into it too much, I just kind of want to give you a little bit of background. The power rankings that we did, like I said, where we base it kind of on the last three performances, we're going to do those once a week. And so we did them on Wednesday, so I figure we'll probably just go ahead and keep doing those every Wednesday, which then lines up really well because then the last one that we do will be the day before DCI prelims in Indianapolis. So that'll line up absolutely perfectly. And then that'll be a great preview show for prelims, semis, and finals. And it'll be a great wrap up for the DCI Open Class Championships that would have just happened. So I think we'll just go ahead and keep doing the power rankings once a week. But I'll go ahead and update the averages for you and where everyone's standing as far as their overall averages as they come in. And now that we're having more and more corps performing, I think that's going to kind of be the way to go. So we will start out today actually by talking about the DCI Midwest Classic in DeKalb, Illinois. The first thing that I wanted to point out is that it wasn't a particularly large crowd. There were a lot of holes in the crowd. There were a lot of empty prime seats, which kind of surprised me. I was looking at it because that's usually a really good show. The one at Northern Illinois University, it's usually a really good crowd, but this year wasn't. And so I was kind of curious, and I did some looking, and sure enough, there was rain. And so that's going to keep some people away. But it was still a good show. It was a good show, and right off the bat, we got to see, well, in the first three corps, we got to see two that we haven't gotten to see up to this point. And so I was ecstatic about that, and I was excited for it. The first corps of the night that we got to see was Genesis and their show entitled Symbiosis. And so that was that was a good show. I enjoyed it. They come out, their opening set before they even play a note. They've got like this cool DNA strand set to start the show. It was pretty neat. Sharp looking uniforms, like purple pinstripe vests with black shirts, black pants. Look pretty stinking sweet. I like it. If you've not got a chance to get a look at these guys, just go online, check out their uniforms for this season. Sharp look. I like them. They got a nice mysterious opening with the contras and the mid brass, the tempo and the dynamic build. It starts out slow, just kind of keeps building straight into the opener. Boom. They're not afraid to push the tempo, which is in going into their opener, which is Firebird, and I like it. Like Stravinsky, boom. You can't go wrong with Stravinsky, like ever. And something that a lot of the corps have managed to avoid up to this season, Genesis kind of fell into that trap early on. They overplayed and they fell just a little bit flat. They were able to rein it back in though, and they grabbed control of it. It was nice. Bass drums, those runs and those hits, they were hitting early on. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love excellent bass drum runs, and they were hitting early on. I loved it. I enjoyed the play with performing Firebird and the symbiotic theme between performing Firebird and the Firebird being the corps logo. And so that's cool. And I'll be honest, I haven't followed Genesis closely enough over the last couple of years. I don't know if this is the thing that they do every year. It should. They need to put that in there everywhere. I know last year they did somewhere over the rainbow. So that would be kind of hard to fit that in there. But no, I loved kind of that symbiotic energy that was going on between the performance and their logo. It was neat. It was really, really good. Great energy coming out of the gates. For an opening statement for the season, it was strong. And Something that they do, and that a lot of ensembles, and this is not just in drum corps, but in performing ensembles in general. Whenever there's a stinger at the end of a piece, they tend to cut it short, and they gave the stinger its full volume or its full value. And I appreciated that so much so that I put it directly into my notes as soon as I heard it. And I actually applauded it. And I think my wife kind of looked over at me like I was crazy, but I did. I applauded that they gave the stinger its full value. And I dug that. Um, there was an ooh, watch out moment early in the second movement. There's a collision or near miss between a tenor player and a color guard member. Um, and if you could tell us something that they've been working on, they'll get it fixed. I have no doubt of that. I'm always a fan of when the color guard do the really long stick tosses, and these things are like 8, 9 feet, and they like toss them in the air. I've always been a huge fan. I don't even know what those things are called, other than really long sticks. And I'm sure someone that does color guard will let me know in the comments. Please do, because I want to be educated. But yeah, they do those, and they look good. I like it. There were some pretty severe intonation issues in the solo and the quintet sections of the ballad, and I can't help but imagine that those will be remedied. The more you perform it, the more you get it out there, the more those things will get fixed. And you're going to notice this is a theme throughout the evening, which makes me think now, in retrospect, that it was caused by heat and extreme humidity. That it wasn't that they were just out of tune, it was that it was caused by something external, like weather. Good power and build in the brass in the ballad. There's just not a lot of intonation. The French horn solo ending to it, though, that was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Very, very well done. The bass feature to start the closer didn't quite hit. It will, and most of the other stuff that they did hit, and so I am excited to see about what happens when it does. This is their first show, and that's something that I kind of have to keep reminding myself. This is their first show. It's going to get better. The drill wasn't particularly clean in spots. Again, the more you do it, repetition. Repetition, the more you do it, the better it'll get. I love the move to the end of Firebird at the end of the show. The formation, the marching to get into it. I really liked the movement to get there, and that was pretty neat. So that's something that I'll kind of be watching out for again to see. Just because I was kind of typing notes as it was going, because at this point, my comments were coming fast and furious, and I just kind of I'm typing, I'm looking, I'm typing, I'm looking. I'm just barely catching snippets at this point. I'm going to go back next time they march, and I'm going to watch that again so I can describe it for you in greater detail. All I remember thinking was, man, that's a cool move. I liked it. The mellophones, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. Well done. Well done. The ending to the show, terrific. This group is going to get there. They're going to be semifinalists, and like I can't wait to see these guys in Indianapolis. I'm going to get to see these guys in Indianapolis, and so I'm excited for that. I also have to give a personal shout out to a friend of mine who I've gotten to work with as a student, and now watching him in college. Damian Hernandez, he's a tenor player with Genesis. Saw him last night. Fantastic. Very well done, Damian. Proud of you. Good job. The next corps to perform were the Madison Scouts. And their show, The Soundgarden. The nice trumpet solo kicked it off. The first brass hit was kind of weird. It recovered really nicely and very quickly, and it was good, but just that initial hit didn't quite land. At least for me, it didn't. Uh, there was some nice electronic play building into the individual full ensemble hits to start the second movement. You got like electronics, yum, yum, yum. The rack work and the electronics work in there was good. It was tasteful, not over the top. Well done. Nice movement from one section to the next in the brass feature. They just handed it off very nicely from the trumpets to the euphoniums to the French horns to, or rather, to the mellophones, and it was done very, very well. The mellophones that were hitting so nicely the other night weren't quite as on point tonight, and that's okay. That's okay. Again, we're at an early enough stage that things like that are going to happen. So there's no real need to stress out over stuff like that. The trumpets in that same section, though, where the mellophones weren't quite landing, more than made up for it. They definitely came to play, and they rocked out. It was great. The brass need to check their timing on the 180 turn coming into the attacking arc. Their turn kind of led to some phasing, and there were a couple of issues with it in Genesis as well. And I wonder if the players were having a hard time hearing this evening, because these weren't the only cores that had this issue. So I wonder if some of the cores are having a hard time hearing this evening for some reason. I don't know why that would be, unless there's just a funky corner in the stadium. I'm not familiar with the stadium in DeKalb. But unless there's a funky corner somewhere, or an anomaly with the stadium that makes the echoes go weird. But yeah, there were multiple cores that were having issues hearing. And then the trumpets, they would have these moments where they were just on point, and then larger amount of times where they were struggling a little bit. This is going to sound kind of harsh, and I don't mean it to, but tonight it sounded like there were some really good moments of playing, and then there were other times where there was there was some okay ensemble playing with some trumpet screamers that were on top of it that were really on point. And that has kind of gotten Madison Scouts in trouble the last decade or so, is kind of relying on these screamers that don't really fit in anywhere. And that was kind of what it sounded like last night in Elements. But I have not heard that up to this point, so I have no reason to believe that that's the case. Now, if the ensemble play is starting to decline, then it may be an issue. Let me listen to them a couple more times before I start passing that judgment, though. There's a really nice bass trombone feature coming out of the ballad, then joined by the mellows. Fantastic. Good stuff. Mallets, fantastic intro going into the fourth movement. Interesting to note that traditional moves for cores aren't resonating with the fans as much as they have in years past. So Madison Scouts, it used to be when Madison Scouts did their company front, the crowd went nuts. They're not this year. And it's not because Madison Scouts aren't good. The crowds just aren't reacting to it. And so I wonder, and I hate to see it, but I think we've seen it with Phantom Regiment. We've seen it with the cadets, and kind of, we've seen it with Phantom Regiment and not doing the kick halt. We've seen it with cadets and not doing the Z pull. I wonder if we're starting to see some of these traditions, like these staple moves, being pulled out just because they're not hitting anymore. Carolina Crown isn't doing their crown. Um, Madison's doing their company front, and it's not being reacted to. So and I hate that because that's like a loss of a piece of drum corps when that happens. And so I mean, I hope it's just bad audio on my part, and I hope, but the visual of the crowd is matching what I'm hearing or not hearing, and so that's kind of disconcerting. Tonight, or rather last night, the show just left me wanting. And I hope that doesn't continue to be the case. That really hasn't been the case up to this point with me. I've been satisfied with the show. Um, I think they're going to struggle to make finals. I've said that, but I don't know. This evening, or rather yesterday, it just left me wanting. And I hope that changes. And I think it will. I think it will. But we're still just entering the second week of July. March, wow. The second week of July. There's still 5 weeks before they get to Indianapolis. There's plenty of time. The next corps that we got to see was also a first timer for us this season. It was the Crossmen, and their show Meetings at the Edge. Right off the bat, I love that the corps comes in from the periphery of the field. They outline the field and then they all come in to close in. I wish more corps did this. You'll see it every now and then. You'll see it. And it's such a cool aesthetic. But not very many corps do it. And I think it's just because the logistics of it are hard to pull off. Um, you're talking at its distances, at the farthest points, you've got people that are 165 yards apart. If you got from the back of the front corner of the left end zone to the back corner of the right end zone, it's 165 yards. That's a lot, And so to get everyone in sync and in step coming in together, that's difficult. They did it looked good. I also wish more corps opened with Beatles songs. They opened with "Long and Winding Road." It was cool. I dug it. Watch your intonation in the power segments. They had the same issue from as Genesis. What are we noticing though between these two? It's their first show. They're excited to be out there and they want to punch you in the face with it, and that's great. And I love the excitement, and I love the fact that they're out there giving you everything. Don't give me too much because it jacks with your intonation. Also, if you're going to go for those high notes, you got to hit them. And they had a couple issues where they went for those notes and they didn't get them, and so that's kind of you got to be careful with that. They had a really neat core visual in their chromatic run, taking advantage of their two colored uniforms. So their uniform is like black and silver. It's like there is black and then like silver in their cape. And like if they face one way, the cape is silver, and if they face one way, the cape is black. And they did something where it rippled across the core, and the core transitioned from silver to black, and it was really cool. It was really really neat. They implemented some Cavalier style drill from the mid 2000s, and I loved it. Um, I don't know what the song was, and I went to go look back, and I couldn't figure out. There was one piece that they were playing that they were having so much fun, and like they were really just loving life. And I was like, man, is a corps allowed to have this much fun on the field? They were enjoying it, and I was so glad to see it. That always makes me happy. Um, when you see corps enjoying what they're doing, you're seeing it a lot with a couple corps this year where they're really you can tell they're really loving what they're doing. Um, Once the color guard hits in the ballad, it's going to be a goosebump maker. It is powerful, and I mean it is all there. It's good. This guys, Crossmen are the real deal this year. They're they they could very well make finals comfortably, I'd say. Um, ooh, they're gonna make some people mad. They're gonna make some people mad. They're gonna make some people mad. They ripped a page straight from Phantom Regiment. They added a kick halt at the end of their movement 4. Um, no, no, nope, 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 nope. I got mixed up in my notes. I am so sorry. That was not Crossman. My apologies. That was not Crossman. Uh, okay. Yeah, no, no, I apologize. I apologize. I misspoke. Um, I had, I was taking some, I was recapping my notes earlier, and one of my pages got flipped over, and so because I do my notes front and back, that's a memo to myself that I need to quit doing my notes front and back. Um, 16 contras. 16 contras. That's the most I've seen in comp this season. Uh, there is some pretty rough intonation in the brass quintet going into the ballad. Uh, and then they added trombones to it, which didn't help. Um, that'll get fixed. And again, you're noticing a theme here. There are intonation issues throughout. So the more I think about it and the more I say it, the more I'm pretty certain it was a weather thing. Um, the Blue Coats a few years ago started setting a trend where they would have these gigantic props, and the entire corps would either be behind them, well, they would be behind them, and then they would either come out from behind them or they would come out through them. And the Crossmen use this effectively. They do a good job. They're and it was a really neat aesthetic. And I hate to keep beating this horse. Um, their intonation got worse as the show went on. It will improve. This group has potential to be in contention for a final spot. We've got a few things to correct here and there, but they do have a fun show to watch. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go watch them. They are a fun group. They're a fun group. Um, Troopers were next. Their show to lasso the sun. Okay. This is the one where I got my notes crossed. They increase the visual elements in the early moments of the opener, and it's kind of exciting. They're getting to the point now, again, and I mentioned the other day, they've competed now more than any other corps. And so, like, they are not missing an opportunity to compete, and that's a good thing. And they're making the most of it. They're adding things. It's getting exciting. I feel like the cluster core toward the end of movement one, they kind of all come together. It could be more rounded and less amorphous. The sound is fantastic. It looks like they're trying to make it round, but you've got some stragglers out there. Again, things that will get fixed. In the big build in the slow section of movement two, I never realized the battery are making the Troopers logo in a visual. I never caught that before, and I've actually seen the battery there, so I don't know if this is a new thing or I've just somehow managed to miss it while looking directly at them every time. I still love the harmonica euphonium duet in the ballad. Although the euphonium didn't quite hit this evening, it's a beautiful ballad. It really is. And in that ballad, once the guard hits, it's going to be a goosebump maker. It's powerful. And I said it. It's a beautiful ballad. The show is fantastic. I like the Troopers show. I really do. I like the Troopers show just about every year. Like I can't remember the last time I heard a show that they did that I didn't like. Troopers were the ones that are going to make people mad. They ripped a page from Phantom Regiment, and if anyone's gonna do it, Troopers are the ones that can get by with it. Because aside from Phantom Regiment, they're probably the most popular corps in America. But they sure did. They added a kick halt in the end of Movement 4. And I guess they figured, well, if Phantom's not going to, we will. I'm curious to see what happens now if Phantom puts one in. Will they take it out? So that'll kind of be the next thing to take a look at. Definite power from them in the company front this evening. I knew it was going to hit soon. I knew it was coming. And tonight was it. It was definitely there. They're starting to make some noise, and I feel like they're kind of on the precipice of that big launch. I think they're right there. The next quarter performed with the Colts, and their show Where the Heart Is. Their timing was just a little bit off in the opener, but it still worked. Nothing too bad. Again, kind of makes me wonder if there's not some sort of weird angle in the stadium seating that is causing echoes to be weird. Because that's something that we haven't seen up to this point. The energy seemed to be a little down tonight, but they were definitely clean. Once they got past kind of that introductory statement, they were definitely clean. And I think the down energy speaks to the down crowd. It's a smaller crowd, kind of sparse. I'm not saying nobody was there, but there were, it was a spread out crowd. I would say it was a COVID crowd. It's not like there was only like 40 people rattling around in there, but it was a spread out crowd. The trombone quartet hits for them just about every time, and this has become a thing for them now. Good stuff. Their trombones last year were fantastic. They're fantastic again this year, and great bass trombone sound. Holy smokes. They're good. Their color guard is much, much improved. They've come a long way. Yay, mellophone. Fantastic in the ballad. Nice runs in there. And then this evening, as a whole, the Corps' fourth movement, just high energy, clean, articulate, and fun. It was good. As I listen and watch this closer, I keep going back to what I said in the first episode, and I'm going to have to eat my words. This definitely looks and sounds like a final score to me. They're not going to win. They're not going to win. There are other corps that are way too good. I initially said that this corps was going to struggle to make finals, and they may still struggle to make finals. But now that we have everyone performing, I think they're in a pretty good place. There are only 3 world-class cores that haven't performed yet, and none of them are really in contention to make finals. So now where we are is, I think, a pretty good gauge. And at the end of the show, we'll go back. We'll take a look at the averages to really kind of highlight where everybody is. The next core to perform were the Cavaliers, where you'll find me. Clean opening statement, which is significant given that the performers are spread from end zone to end zone. And the fact that they're able to pull that off, spread out 100 yards, that's significant and that's impressive. Terrific drill in the opener to start their second movement, and to start the second movement rather. And we've gotten now to the point in the season where there's not just a ton of discernible difference between many of the cores. I'd say between like 4th place and 12th place, there's not much of a discernible difference. There is like those cores and then a gap in the top 3. Like, Blue Devils, Crown, and Boston. And we don't know where Blue Coats fits in that, but you got to assume they're going to be kind of in that upper echelon. But there's those 3, and then a sizable gap, 8 more, and then kind of everyone else. But like those ones in the middle, they could kind of mix up. The Cavaliers have absolutely stepped up. Are they better than Troopers and Colts? Probably. Are they better than Boston and Crown? Probably not. I would say that these guys are probably top 6 to 8 core at least. I just realized last night when I was watching them, the brass trio in Somewhere Over the Rainbow when they're playing sounds like hold music or like elevator music. And I just realized that, and I kind of chuckled when I was listening to it. And a lot of these cores that I've now seen 4, 5, 6 times, some of them, 7 for the Troopers now. I think 7. 6, sorry, yeah, 6 times now for the Troopers. I'm getting now to just kind of sit back and enjoy them. I'm being less analytical. Last night it sounded like one or more of the snare players were playing with a broken stick. And I noticed that specifically there was a snare feature and there was a roll. You heard that, and I was like, okay, so it sounds like they've got a broken stick in there somewhere, if not multiple players with broken sticks. I just realized as I was listening to them last night, I was like, because I was listening, I was like, man, this is a good group. This is a really good group. And I just realized who they remind me of are the 2008 Cavaliers. Good enough to win in just about any other year, but the competition was just impossible. Remember 2008, they were up against the Blue Devils and Phantom Regiment in that year when they were just, nobody was going to stop them. And I feel like that's Cavaliers this year. Is they're good enough to win most years, but this isn't most years. This is a top-heavy year. Like, there's not one core that has kind of set themselves apart. Like, a lot of times by this point, you can already tell, okay, it's going to be Blue Knights or Blue Knights. It's going to be Blue Coats, or it's going to be Blue Devils. It can be Blue Knights, whatever. There's usually one core by this point that has already set themselves apart. There's not one at this point. I couldn't tell if they were missing just a ton of numbers or if their drill was designed that way, but there's a couple of gaping holes that were showing. And looking at it then later, they were missing at least 8 players. So I do worry. I do worry about illness. I worry about injury. I worry about all these things with these kids that are out there giving everything that they have. But I applaud that they're going on and they're giving absolutely everything that they have. The base feature didn't quite land coming into the closer, but I think this is the first time it didn't land. So what are we worrying about here? Um, the core's on the precipice of a real breakthrough, and I'm excited to see what happens when it does. The next core to perform were the Blue Stars and their show In Absentia. Uh, Euphonium solo in the opener is spectacular and really really clean, like notably clean. The mellows weren't quite landing, but they're not far off. They will get there. Um, and this is one that they're inching up, and that's the kind of progress you want to see. Slow progress is good progress in this case. A lot of interesting visual things that I don't remember seeing that are working for them up to this point. So, they're also kind of getting to the point now where we're like, okay, we're a few shows in now. We know our stuff. Now let's start making it a show and less of just marching. Um, nice euphonium 16th note run that's exposed in the second movement before the big brass moment that leads into the contra feature in there. It's really good and it's super exposed, so it's there. If one person misses it, it falls on itself. But if everyone nails it, it scores big with the judges and the crowd, and it did last night. Uh, Elements of the core that showed up last year are starting to arrive now. This is the time where things are really starting to get fun. Like this is the time of year where you know you really can tell what they're trying to focus on. The places that they're really trying to drive home, that shows out. Okay. There was one spot where there were a lot of flags in close proximity to each other, and they were within a contra formation. So, like the contras were like this, and the flags were all in here. Um, and the timing of one of the flags got off, and it almost turned into a disaster. So that's something that you've got to be really, really careful about. Because if that timing comes off, not only are you risking getting the other flags off, you've got big instruments all around you. One of those gets hit, you could get someone injured. And so, they got to be really careful with that. And they know that. These are not things that they don't know, that they're not aware of. It's like, oh, really? No, they know this. Um, Euphonium duet in the ballad is terrific, leading beautifully into the trumpet duet every time. And then into the building brass section, fantastic. They overplayed the end of the ballad, and I'm like, you haven't done that all year long. What happened? Um, and I think what happened was they were really confident with it, and they gave a little bit too much. Um, a lot of excellent interactive use throughout of the props by the performers. That I feel like it had been there maybe up to this point, but maybe not to the degree that it was last night. But it worked. The bass hits in the closer didn't quite land, but when they do, it's going to be spectacular. It's going to be great. Uh, the leaning visuals in the closer not quite landing. They kind of do this thing where they're playing, they kind of lean over and they come back. But it was at the very end of the show. And it speaks to how, and we talked about the other day, how in shape Carolina Crown are. And the physically demanding stuff at the very end of the show that Crown prepared for. And Blue Stars are not quite ready for. They'll get there, and it's fine. It's why you see in figure skating, they add extra points to difficult physically demanding elements in the last few seconds of a show because you're already tired when you get there. That's what's going on here. It'll get there. I have no doubt in my mind that it'll get there. They're a great corps. The drill execution in the last 30 seconds, very well done. Very, very well done. Next corps to perform were the Boston Crusaders and their show White Whale. They nailed the opening to their show as they do every time. It was fantastic. Battery feature, once again, was top notch. Their drill execution, as I said before, and I'll say it again, I think it's the best in the entire competition. The Swallowtail Jig, where the trumpets kind of botched it the other night, was better this evening. It's easy to see that all these corps are really starting to find their footing. Excellent flag work throughout. Good flag work can really enhance a show, unbelievably so, and this one is certainly no exception to that. They had tuning issues as well, and I had marked it in every single corps that performed. The closer of their show, and I didn't really realize it until last night, is kind of reminiscent of 1993 Star of Indiana with Medea. It's technical, solid, just glorious to listen to. It was a lot of fun. The final corps to perform for the evening were Phantom Regiment, their show Exogenesis. The euphonium solo, just be prepared. I'm going to mention it every single time. They added an additional tarp prop. That was kind of cool, gave an added visual element to it. Phantom showed up last night. It was a terrific start. I think I've just managed to miss it every single time up until now, but Phantom does like an inverted Z pull in the snares to open the second movement. That's pretty sweet, actually. They're not afraid to use every inch of the field on and off the field. Color Guard are off the field in the second movement, using it very well. They had intonation issues as well. There was some microphone feedback at the end of the ballot. It's a bad look and probably cost them in the competition last night. As tight as the corps were, it probably did cost them a little bit. I really do like the overall blend of the ensemble. It was a fantastic performance. It wasn't as good as Boston's, I didn't think, but it was a fantastic performance. So my results for that show for last night, I had Boston sweeping all the captions. I had outstanding brass, outstanding percussion, outstanding guard, outstanding general effect. And then my results, I had Genesis in 9th place, Madison Scouts in 8th, Crossmen in 7th, Troopers in 6th, Colts in 5th, Blue Stars 4th, Cavaliers 3rd, Phantom Regiment 2nd, and Boston Crusaders 1st. The DCI results were fairly similar. They had Genesis in 9th with a score of 65.4. It's not bad for a first show. Crossmen in 8th with a score of 70.65. Even better for a first show. 7th place were Madison Scouts with a score of 70.90, so close there between Crossmen and Scouts. And that was Crossmen's first show. They'll pass Scouts, probably their next show. Colts in 6th with a score of 73.65. Troopers in 5th with a score of 74.60. Cavaliers in 4th with a score of 76.35. Blue Stars 3rd with a score of 76.65. So close there between the Cavaliers and Blue Stars. I thought Cavaliers were better than Blue Stars, but it was close. Phantom Regiment in 2nd by a fairly wide margin with a score of 78.45. Then Boston Crusaders clearing away by 2.8 points in 1st place, 81.30. So this is going to be a long episode because that took almost 45 minutes, and we still have another show to recap. But we're just going to get right into it. Okay, I ended up missing the first corps of the evening, which were Golden Empire, because the show in Lisle or excuse me, in DeKalb, Illinois, went a half hour long. And so by the time they were done, and I didn't even stick around to watch scores, by the time I flipped over, they were already done. Golden, excuse me, Golden Empire. So the first core I got to watch were gold. So I'm actually not going to rank the open class cores. I will comment on what I saw though. So gold was the first core that I got to see, and this is the first time this year that I got to see them. And their show, The Hands That Pull the Strings. This is a core that year in and year out, they're an open class core that could compete in world class if they wanted to. And I don't know if that's in their plans or not, but whatever they do, it's their prerogative. They can do whatever they want to. They can dominate open class if they want to. What a hit right off the bat. It was fantastic. They had some immediate phasing in the battery. That's an easy fix. That's something that you know, a couple of sectional, and they'll be done. But then it happened a second time in about 30 seconds. I wonder if the size of the stadium, because they played in a D1 football stadium last night, but they've been playing in large stadiums, so I don't know. Because they played last night at Fresno State University. It was also a fairly empty stadium, though. So I wonder if the size of the stadium combined with the lack of attendance was causing them some issues. They played separate ways. Woo! That's my favorite Journey song. Love it. There's so much power in such a small, relatively small core. They're a third smaller than most world class cores. They got a ton of power. I love the theme of the show that starts out with a marionette, like a human marionette. That's crazy. It goes to magician. The uniforms fit the theme very well. Also, got like the black capes. It's with the top hat. It's really cool. You can tell they're a younger core, but a formidable one. If they're not top three in open class finals, I would be highly surprised. I can't think of two cores better. I can't. They may want to check their balance, their electronics balance in the Latin number. Their bongos were out voluming their baritones. I know that's not how it would have sounded actually, but that because they would have been getting we would have been getting presumably the feed that they were getting. So they may want to not quite mic the bongos so loud. It was an interesting end to the show, but a really entertaining one. And I can't wait to see where it goes. You can tell they're still working on it. They're good. They're really good. Uh, I'm surprised that they're not. Well, like I said, I would easily anticipate them going world class. But if they don't, that's perfectly fine. You know, they can do what they want to do. That's completely on them. The next score to perform were Blue Devils B in their show The Fathers of Electricity. Another perennial title contender in open class, but not this year because they only travel nationally every other season, and they traveled last year. Nice visual aspect at the beginning of the show to add to the theme of the show. They've got a fun little duet between the baritone and the mellophone, and a hit to open the second movement. You cannot convince me the Blue Devils B is a feeder core. Their ensemble's terrific. If they went to Indy, they'd stand a better than fair chance of making semifinals in world class. They're better than some of the open class cores that are out there right now. The idea of the show takes you through the main figures in electricity and like the discoveries in electricity, the major discoveries in electricity. You got Ben Franklin in the key, Thomas Edison the light bulb, Nikola Tesla in the Tesla coil. It's a really cool concept. I like it. The bass feature coming out of the ballad didn't quite hit, but it's a feature most world-class cores would be proud of. And knowing the Blue Devils standard of excellence, it's a hit that they'll get it at some point. I'm not worried about it. The trumpets at the very start of the closer aren't quite hitting on the staccato eighth notes. Again, they'll get there. They'll get there. They've got plenty of time. This is once again another group that could march open class uh, if they wanted to, and not get run out of the stadium. They would not lose every contest if they marched world class. I understand the Blue Devils not wanting to put them world class though, so they will stay exactly where they are, and that's okay. That's kind of their spot. It's much like Santa Clara Vanguard cadets could march world class if they wanted to. They're not going to. Why would SCV do that? I also dig. I really like, and this is something that I'm also kind of surprised that a lot of corps don't do. They end their show with a mojo section, and that kind of surprises me. It I like it. Like I liked it a lot to see it, and so much so that now I'm kind of wondering, well, why don't other corps do that? And we may see that moving forward. The next corps to see. So I have not seen any of the corps, not seen them in competition this season, any of these. The next corps that I got to see were Pacific Crest, the first world class corps to perform, and their show entitled Goddess. A nice opening hit coming out of the introduction, but the set didn't hit in time. It might be worth visiting the space versus time on that. It's my first time seeing him, but it's definitely not their first time marching it. And you can tell that people were having a hard time getting to their spot. So they may want to revisit how they approach that set. They do a great job setting the theme. They've got the tarp that looks like the ocean, like the Mediterranean Sea, kind of off into the corner. You've got the clouds looking. You've got the Corinthian columns. You've got obviously the look of the gods and goddesses with the color guard. Terrific, terrific. Very good mellophone soloist. In both the opener and the second movement, I'm assuming it's the same player. Terrific, terrific range, terrific sound, terrific, fantastic. The euphoniums were having some slight tuning issues at the end of the second movement, just before the ballad. It was a really nice bass drum run coming out of the ballad leading into the fourth movement. Much like yesterday with the Bluecoats, the marching part of the corps spends a great deal of time not playing. The difference is that at least this one is filled with percussion feature, but it's a lot of time of marching but not playing. It's notable. It's notable. Admittedly, I don't know if that's a regular thing with the upper end open class corps or not. So I'll kind of start keeping more of an eye out for that. Very cool concept of the show. Music and props fit very well to show. Very nice ending statement. Not really an overly powerful corps, but definitely strong enough to get the point across. I enjoyed this show. I enjoyed this show. I misspoke, actually. I misspoke earlier. Pacific Crest is not an open class corps. They're a world class corps. And I apologize. I apologize for misspeaking there. So yeah. In my opinion, they should make semifinals. I don't see 4 open class corps beating them, and that's what would have to happen. 4 open class corps would have to beat Pacific Crest, and they'd have to finish dead last behind all of the world class corps, and I don't even know that that's going to happen. So, because you've got a lot of corps, or you've got 3 corps specifically that still haven't performed, and I don't know that they'll fall behind any of them. So, I just don't know. It was an enjoyable show. I liked it. And that's the thing that I think so many people kind of get caught up in with Drum Corps is just because a show isn't necessarily highly competitive doesn't mean it's not an enjoyable show. I loved the mess out of Jersey Surf show last year. You know where they finished? Dead last. I enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the most memorable shows of the season for me. So, it depends on why you're doing it, or why you're watching it. This is one of those shows for me. I enjoy the show. I look forward to seeing it. The next quarter performed were the Mandarins in their show Sinnerman. Interesting uniform choice, not dissimilar to the Cadets, Angels and Demons, where you have some brass dressed in red, some brass dressed in white, percussion dressed in black. Interesting because in this battle, evil triumphs. So there's a fun little twist. Fantastic passage, handing the running 16th notes up and down the brass line. Very, very well done. The Mandarins have been on a roll for quite a few seasons now, and they are no one to be trifled with. They will make some noise. They are executing at a very high level. Nat King Cole, followed by Hosier. You love it, and that juxtaposition in music highlights the conflict in characters being portrayed in the performance. Also, they make it work. It's not like some groups that just perform music that doesn't really go together. They make it work within the theme. And so I applaud them for that. You take the pieces that don't seem like they would go together. Like Phantom Regiment, for instance, is one. They've got Muse and Rachmaninoff. Those don't seem like they would go together at all, but they do because they make it work. Same thing here. And I applaud it. It's great. Battery in the Closer. Woo! Yes, 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 yes. The full ensemble closing with the spiritual Sinnerman. I love that piece. I love that piece. I love working with choir. I've got to work with choirs that have performed that before. It's great. And you brings the whole show full circle very well. Well executed show. I loved it. I loved it. I was prepared to not, but I loved it. The next quarter performed were the Blue Knights and their show entitled Unharnessed. And this is their first show of the season. Immediately, they had a technical issue with a prop, and it was a big prop. Like so much so, in fact, that they had already started the show and they were still dragging the prop onto the field. So hopefully there wasn't anything detrimental to the safety. I'm trying to remember if I saw anyone climb on it during the show or not. I don't remember really. I know there was a staff member climbing on it in the end zone trying to with tools trying to fix it on the field. But I don't remember if anyone climbed on it during the show or not. They punch you right in the face immediately with the introduction. Verdi's Requiem is always hard pumping. It's always a good way to get you going. It's a lesser known part of Verdi's Requiem, but it's still Verdi's Requiem, and it's still powerful, and it's still good. It's a long time before the brass plays in the second movement, and then they miss the entrance. But from there, it was really good. Just make sure, they just got to make sure that as you have, especially the longer amount of time that you go without playing, the more sure you need to be that you nail your entrance, and they didn't. But again, first show, it's going to be okay. It was high energy, a slow build in the ballad, but once it arrived in a big way. A lot of dissonance and brilliant resolution. Damn, at the end of the ballad, fantastic. The show is dark and angry, but the performance is restrained. It could almost stand to be a little more out of control, in my opinion. I'm not the one making that call. That's Daniel Belcher. And it was well executed. I loved it. I like the uniform choice. Carolina blue and black. It's a sharp, nice contrasting uniform. It's a traditional color, portrays the show theme very well. This is a great introductory statement by the Blue Knights. I'm eager to see them grow from here. One show in, it's impossible to tell if they're going to be a finalist or not. It's going to be a hard climb, but I think they could get there. I think it's entirely possible. The final core of the evening to perform with the Blue Devils in their show entitled The Cutouts. So I got to see the Blue Devils in Laramie, Wyoming, when we were on our way to take my daughter to see to her to drop her off at Seattle Cascades. And so my daughter Melody and I went to go see them, and we were at field level, admittedly. So you can't really see much at field level. But I knew this is a different take on Blue Devils than the past 7 or 8 years. The music is based on the life of the artist Henri Matisse. Introductory statement, man, just punch you in the face. The second movement is vintage jazz Blue Devils, and I'm so glad they went back there. Spectacular technical passages. I'm so glad that Blue Devils went there. The whole second movement, including the time change, is just shut up, buckle up, hang on, and enjoy the ride. Followed by the truly bizarre but totally fitting choreography at the end. The thing I love about the show is it keeps you guessing. You don't know what's coming next. But it's not like, well, that doesn't fit. No, it fits. Everything fits. But it does. It keeps you guessing and it keeps you on your toes. And a drum corps show that does that is one worth watching. Ballad is controlled and not too much. Absolutely beautiful flugelhorn and trombone duet leading into the full ensemble. The ensemble wants to give more, but you can tell they hold back because they know they need to. And so, like, it's beautiful. Unbelievable bass drum break coming out of the ballad. And that's one that I did. I got to hear that one. And it is an unbelievable bass drum break. It's fantastic. All the battery sections do very well, handing off to each other. Accented very nicely by the front ensemble, providing a melodic line on top of it, very tastefully done. Just fantastic percussive work. Scott Johnson is an absolute beast. Anything done by Scott Johnson, is going to be gold. More jazz, more jazz after that. I stinking love it. I'm so glad to see the Blue Devils getting back to this side of their identity. When we saw them in Wyoming, they were fantastic then, and that didn't even compare to what I'm hearing now. And I know what we're hearing now isn't even going to compare to what we're going to see in Indianapolis. I applaud them. I applaud them so well. I am not going to rank the open class corps because I did not see them. I didn't see all of them. So I'm not going to. In world class, I'm giving all of the captions to the Blue Devils: outstanding brass, outstanding percussion, outstanding guard, and outstanding general effect. In fourth place, I had Pacific Crest. I had third place being Blue Knights. I had second place being Mandarins. I had first place being Blue Devils. The results from DCI. In open class, they had Golden Empire in third place with a score of 58.75. In second place, they had Gold with a score of 63.85. And in first place, they had Blue Devils B with a score of 65.30. In world class, Pacific Crest were fourth with a score of 68.0. Blue Knights came in third with a score of 71.9. So for a first show, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Second place were Mandarins with a score of 75.6. And then Blue Devils were in first with a score of 81.9, which is a season high for DCI. And so, with the updated averages and everything, here's where we stand right now. And remember, this is a little bit skewed because the Blue Coats have only performed once. The Blue Knights have also only performed once, and Genesis have only performed once. So their averages are going to be a little bit skewed. But right now, the Blue Coats are sitting in first place with an average of 79.85 because they've only performed once. Blue Devils are sitting second with an average of 79.613. Boston Crusaders are third with an average of 79.188. Crown fourth, Carolina Crown fourth with an average of 77.7. Phantom Regiment fifth with an average of 74.58. They passed Cadets, who are sitting in sixth with a score of 74.2, average score of 74.25. Mandarins are seventh, and they're I think that's about where they're going to be is sixth, seventh. They're good with an average of 73.513. Cavaliers are eighth with an average of 73. Ninth are the Blue Stars with an average of 72.39. Blue Knights are 10th right now with an average of 71.9. Are they going to stay there? I don't know. They have one show. Crossmen are another one because they've only performed once. But right now, Crossmen are sitting at 11th with an average of 70.65. And that was their one show. And then Troopers are 12th with an average of 69.967. And so right now, that would be the cutoff. Madison Scouts are 13th with an average of 68.088, followed by the Colts at 14th with 68.04. Music City at 15th with an average of 66.25. The Academy at 16th with an average of 65.933. Pacific Crest and Genesis are tied at 17th with an average of 65.4. And there are, like I said, there are only 3 world-class corps that have yet to perform, and that is Jersey Surf, Seattle Cascades, and Spirit of Atlanta. So we'll see where they fit in. In open class, Blue Devils B are sitting on top right now with an average of 63.1. Gold are second with an average of 62.35. They pass Spartans, who are now in third, with an average of 61.85. Golden Empire are fourth with an average of 57.033. And then a substantial drop-off. And then it gets really tight for a second. Vessel in fifth with an average of 53.275. 7th Regiment sixth with an average of 53.225. And Impulse eighth with an average of, Impulse 7th with an average of 52.425. Colt Cadets are sitting 8th right now with an average of 50.85. And Blue Devil C are 9th with an average of 48.75. Now, there are several open class corps that have yet to compete. You've got Columbians, Guardians, Heat Waves, Listentors, Raiders, River City Rhythm, Southwind, and the Battalion. So those numbers on the open class side are definitely going to change around quite a bit. This has been a rather lengthy episode, but I do appreciate all of you coming in and checking it out. Thank you so much for all of your support in this. Anytime I wonder whether or not this has been worth it, I look and I see how many people are watching these videos, how many people like the videos, and it does kind of make me appreciate it. And so I do. I thank you all so much. I want to ask all of you to please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button. That way you'll know when these videos hit. Hit the like button below. Let me know that hey, you are in fact watching these videos. Just a reminder that no amount of success can compensate for failure in the home. Make sure that you let your family know each and every day just how much you love them. My name is David Vaughn, and until next time, just a reminder that this is a Drum Corps fan's guide to the world. We're just living in it. Take care, and God bless.